Have you ever tried to think in English, but your brain just won't cooperate? You know what I mean? You want to say something, you know the words, but your brain is still translating from your native language. Welcome to Talk, Learn, Teach, the podcast where we help you not just speak English, but think like a native speaker. I'm Marcus, and today we're talking about something that changes everything for English learners.
I love that question, Marcus. And I'm Luna. I used to be exactly like that. I would spend hours learning new words and phrases, but the moment someone asked me a question, my brain would freeze. I couldn't think fast enough to answer. It was like my English knowledge was locked behind a door, and I couldn't find the key.
That's such a real problem. Most English learners focus on grammar rules and vocabulary lists, but nobody teaches them how to actually think in English, and that's what we're changing today. Welcome back to all our Talk, Learn, Teach listeners. If you're new here, please subscribe to our channel. We post new episodes every week to help you become a confident English speaker.
And please share this episode with your friends. Tell them about Talk, Learn, Teach. Let's build this learning community together. Now, Marcus, let's get straight into it. What does it really mean to think in English?
Great question. So thinking in English means your brain processes information directly in English without translating. Right now, if you're listening to this, many of you are probably translating my words into your native language, understanding them there, and then thinking of your response. That takes time, that adds stress. But when you think in English, you skip that middle step.
It's like having a shortcut in your brain. Instead of taking the long road of translation, you take the fast road of direct thinking. And here's the thing, this doesn't happen overnight. Your brain needs training, just like your body needs training to run faster or lift heavier weights.
Exactly. And I want to tell you about my own journey with this. About 2 years ago, I was learning Spanish. I had studied it in school for years, but when I traveled to Mexico, I was completely lost. I would hear a question, translate it mentally, think of my response in my native language, translate that back to Spanish, and by then, the person had already moved on to someone else. It was so frustrating.
That must have felt awful.
It did. But then I met a teacher who told me something simple. She said, "Stop translating, start living." That changed my perspective. Instead of learning Spanish words, I started living my life in Spanish. I watched Spanish movies, not with subtitles. I listened to Spanish podcasts during my morning walks. I even started keeping a diary in Spanish. And slowly, my brain started thinking in Spanish naturally.
That's beautiful. So you're saying the key is exposure and immersion, not just studying.
Yes, but there's more to it than that. Exposure helps, but you need a strategy. That's what we're going to talk about today. There are specific techniques that can speed up this process significantly. You don't have to wait 2 years to think in English. You can do it in months if you're smart about it.
I love this because I think a lot of learners feel like they're not smart enough or talented enough to think in English. They think it's something only gifted people can do. But it's really just a skill. Any skill can be learned.
100%. And that brings me to our first technique, the technique I call building English anchors. Luna, what does the word anchor mean to you?
An anchor is something that holds a boat in place. It keeps the boat from drifting away.
Perfect. Now imagine your brain like an ocean. Your English knowledge is floating around in that ocean and it needs anchors to stay in place. These anchors are connections, real-life situations where you use English. Let me explain this with an example.
Yes, I want to hear this.
Okay, so imagine you're sitting in a coffee shop. You order your coffee. Now, most students just memorize the phrase, "I would like a coffee," but then they forget it a week later. But what if you actually go to a coffee shop, order your coffee, taste it, feel the warmth of the cup, and have a short conversation with the barista? Suddenly, the English isn't just words anymore. It's connected to a real experience.
Ah, I see. You're creating a memory around the words.
Yes, and when you need those words later, your brain doesn't just retrieve words, it retrieves the whole memory, the feeling, the place, the person you talk to, and memories are much stronger than isolated words.
This is why I never recommend learning from flashcards alone. Don't get me wrong, flashcards can help, but they should be part of a bigger strategy. You need real situations.
Absolutely. So here's what I want you to do. Choose one area of your life where you use English every week. Maybe it's watching English movies. Maybe it's talking to English-speaking friends online. Maybe it's your job. Whatever it is, create anchors in that area. Notice the vocabulary. Notice how people speak. Notice the feelings and situations connected to those words.
And the more specific you are, the better, right? Instead of just watching English movies, you could watch a specific type of movie that interests you, and you could watch it multiple times.
Genius. Yes, I have a friend who wanted to learn English. She was not interested in books or classrooms, but she loved cooking, so she started watching cooking shows in English. She watched the same show multiple times. She learned the vocabulary of cooking. And you know what happened? Within 3 months, she could talk about cooking confidently in English.
3 months?
3 months, because her brain was engaged. She wasn't forcing herself to study, she was actually enjoying the learning process.
This is so important. Many people think learning English has to be hard, but it doesn't. It should feel natural. It should feel like something you want to do, not something you have to do.
So, Luna, we've talked about building anchors. Now let's talk about something else that blocks people from thinking in English. It's perfectionism. Can we talk about that?
Oh my goodness, yes. Perfectionism is a huge problem for English learners. I see it all the time. Someone is in the middle of a conversation and they pause because they want to say something perfectly, but by the time they say it, the conversation has moved on.
Right. And here's the thing. Native speakers don't think perfectly either. They pause, they stumble, they make mistakes, but they keep going. Your brain is not designed to think perfectly. Your brain is designed to communicate. Communication is messy, it's imperfect, and that's okay.
I remember when I was learning English, I was so afraid of making mistakes. I would rehearse everything in my head before I said it, and it took forever. I sounded robotic. I was not connecting with people.
What changed for you?
I got tired. I got tired of being perfect. I was at a conference and someone asked me a question. And instead of rehearsing my response, I just answered. I made mistakes. My grammar was not perfect, but I was honest. I was real, and people connected with me. After that conversation, 3 people came up to me and asked about my experience. 3 people. They didn't care about my perfect grammar. They cared about what I had to say.
That's powerful. So let me ask you this. If you had to give advice to someone who is scared to think and speak in English because they want to be perfect, what would you say?
I would say your first goal is not perfection. Your first goal is connection. Can you express your idea? Can the other person understand you? That's the goal. Once you can do that, then you can work on making it more polished and perfect.
I love that, and I want to add something to this. Most English learners are afraid of looking stupid. They think people will judge them for making mistakes. But here's the truth. Most native English speakers have no idea you're not a native speaker until you tell them. And if you speak with confidence, even with mistakes, people will respect you more than if you speak perfectly but with no confidence.
That's so true. Confidence is the most important thing.
Now, let's move on to our next technique, and this one is really powerful. I call it thinking aloud training. Luna, what do you think that means?
It sounds like you're thinking out loud. You're saying your thoughts as you have them.
Exactly. And this is one of the most underrated techniques for training your brain to think in English. Here's how it works. You do something simple, like making breakfast or taking a walk, and you describe everything you're doing in English out loud.
Out loud? Isn't that kind of weird?
Yes, it's completely weird, but that's the point. You feel weird, which means you're doing something new. Your brain is working hard, and when your brain is working hard, it's learning. So I'm making breakfast. I would say things like, now I'm opening the refrigerator. I see milk, eggs, and cheese. The milk is cold, the eggs are brown. I'm feeling hungry. I'm excited to cook. And I'm describing everything, every object, every action, every feeling.
And this trains your brain to think in English?
Yes, because you're not planning what to say. You're not translating. You're just speaking whatever comes to your mind. And your brain learns to form sentences on the spot without thinking. It becomes automatic.
I can see how that would be really helpful, especially for people who need to speak English in real-time situations, like interviews or meetings.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. When you do this every day, even for just 10 minutes, your brain starts thinking in English even when you're not doing the exercise. You'll be walking down the street and your brain will automatically be describing the street in English. Your brain is training itself.
That's amazing. So how often should people do this?
I recommend starting with 5 to 10 minutes a day. And you can do it while you're doing something else. You can do it while you're cooking, exercising, or doing your chores. The key is consistency. Don't do it once and expect miracles. But if you do it every day for 1 month, you will see a huge difference in how naturally English flows from your mouth.
And I think it's important to say, do it when you're alone. Don't do this on the bus in front of other people.
Good point. Do it in the privacy of your own home. Okay, so we've talked about building anchors, thinking aloud, mindset, and shadowing. Now, I want to talk about something that I think is just as important as these techniques. It's your mindset about language. Luna, do you think mindset matters?
Oh, it matters so much. I think mindset is like the foundation of a house. You can have all the best tools and techniques, but if your foundation is weak, nothing stands up.
Exactly. And I want to talk about 3 mindsets that I think are crucial for thinking in English.
I'm ready. What are they?
The first one is this. Think of English as a tool, not a test. Many learners think of English learning like school. They study to pass a test. They worry about getting the answer right. But English is not a test. It's a tool. You use a tool to do something. You use English to communicate, to connect, to understand the world.
That changes everything, doesn't it?
It does. When you shift from test mode to tool mode, you stop worrying about being right. You start focusing on being useful. You start asking, can I use this word to express my idea instead of, is this word correct?
I see. So it's a mindset shift from perfectionism to purpose.
Yes. The second mindset is this. Think of mistakes as information, not failure. Every time you make a mistake, your brain is telling you something. It's telling you, hey, this is something you need to learn. Mistakes are like a map. They show you where to go next.
I like that. Mistakes as information. So instead of feeling bad about making a mistake, you can feel curious about it. You can ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
Right. And when you're curious, instead of judging yourself, your brain is in a better state for learning. Neuroscience shows that the brain learns better when it's in a positive state, not a stressed or negative state.
That makes sense. Stress shuts down the learning part of your brain, but curiosity opens it up.
Exactly. And the third mindset is this. Think of English as a journey, not a destination. So many learners are waiting for the day they think they'll be good enough at English. They're waiting to sound like a native speaker. But that day never comes, because English is always changing. You're always learning.
So instead of waiting for perfection, you should enjoy the process of learning.
Yes, I have a friend who has been speaking English fluently for 10 years, and you know what she told me? She said, I still learn something new every day. She's fluent and she's still learning, so why would you wait to feel good until you're done learning? You should feel good about your progress right now.
That's so encouraging. I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Now, I want to move on to one more technique that I think is really powerful, and I learned this from a language teacher in Tokyo. She called it shadowing. Luna, have you heard of shadowing before?
I think I've heard the word, but I'm not sure what it means in this context.
Okay, so shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and you repeat what they're saying at the same time, like they're your shadow. So the speaker is saying, hello, my name is John, and you're saying it at the exact same time. You're not waiting for them to finish. You're speaking while they're speaking.
Oh, wow, that sounds challenging.
It is challenging, but it's incredibly effective because you're not just listening, you're also speaking, and you're matching the rhythm, the speed, the intonation of a native speaker. Your mouth and your brain are syncing with the native speaker.
So this trains both listening and speaking at the same time.
Yes, and it also trains your brain to process English faster because you don't have time to translate. You have to process the English directly and produce English directly. It's like interval training for your English brain.
I like that. Interval training for your brain. How long should people do this?
Start with 5 minutes a day. Pick a video or an audio clip, something you enjoy, a podcast, a movie scene, a song. and shadow it. Don't worry about being perfect. Just do your best, and after 5 minutes, stop. Your brain will be tired. That's good. That means it's working hard.
After how long will people start to see results?
If you shadow every day for a month, you will hear a difference in your own speech. You'll sound more fluent. You'll be thinking more naturally in English. It's not magic, but it's pretty close.
It sounds like magic to me. Okay, Marcus, I want to bring this back to the main question: how to think in English. We've talked about anchors, thinking aloud, mindset, and shadowing, but what's the fundamental thing that needs to happen in someone's brain for them to actually start thinking in English?
That's a great question. I think the fundamental thing is this. Your brain needs enough English input that English becomes as natural as your native language. And this doesn't happen by studying grammar. It happens by exposure.
So people need to consume English.
Yes, but not just passively, actively, intentionally. You need to choose English content that you enjoy. You need to interact with English. You need to use English in real situations.
I think I want to tell a story here, because I want people to understand how this works in real life. A few years ago, I moved to an English-speaking country for my job. I was terrified. My English was okay on paper, but I had never lived in an English environment before.
What happened?
The first month was really hard. I was translating everything. I was slow, I was embarrassed. But after about 3 months, something magical happened. I was at a meeting at work, and I realized I had been listening to my boss talk for 20 minutes, and I didn't translate a single word. I just understood. And then I answered a question without thinking about it. My brain just produced English.
And that's when you realized you were thinking in English?
Yes, that's exactly when I realized it. And from that point on, it got easier because my brain had figured it out. It knew how to think in English, and the more I used it, the more natural it became.
So in your case, the key was time plus immersion plus real interaction.
Right. But I also want to say, for people who don't have the luxury of living in an English-speaking country, you can create that same environment at home. It takes more intention and creativity, but it's possible.
How?
Well, you can change your phone and computer settings to English. You can join online communities where people speak English. You can find a conversation partner and talk with them regularly. You can watch English movies and TV shows. You can listen to English podcasts. You can do all these things from your home, and you can build the same kind of environment that I had by living in an English-speaking country.
That's brilliant. So the point is, create an English environment. Make English a normal part of your daily life, and your brain will naturally start thinking in English.
Exactly. Now, I want to talk about something that a lot of people struggle with, and that's impatience. People want to think in English too fast. They want to see results immediately.
Oh, yes. I see this all the time. People come to me and say, I've been studying English for 3 weeks. Why can't I think in English yet?
It's like they expect to think in English before they've even given their brain a chance to learn. But your brain is not a computer. It's not a machine that you can reprogram instantly.
Your brain is more like a garden. You plant seeds, you water them, you give them sunlight, and you wait. And after some time, you get beautiful flowers. But you can't rush the process. If you dig up the seeds every week to check if they're growing, they won't grow.
I love that metaphor. So people should be patient with themselves.
Absolutely. I want to give you a realistic timeline. If you're a beginner and you start implementing the techniques we've talked about, you can expect to notice a change in how naturally English comes to you in about 3 to 4 months. You won't be fluent, but you'll notice that you're translating less. You're thinking more directly in English.
And after that?
After that, every month you'll see more progress. You'll be able to think in English in more complex situations. You'll be able to express more nuanced ideas. You'll be able to speak more naturally.
But it's a gradual process.
I think that's really important for people to hear because it sets realistic expectations. And here's what I want to say to people who are listening and thinking, I've been studying for a long time and I still can't think in English.
My question is, have you been implementing these techniques? Have you been intentionally creating an English environment? Or have you just been doing traditional English study?
Because traditional study, like just memorizing vocabulary and studying grammar rules, that's not enough.
It's not. Traditional study is necessary, but it's not sufficient. You also need practice. You need immersion. You need real interaction.
Now, I want to bring this back to the title of this episode, How to Think in English and Train Your Brain to Do So. And I want to ask you, Marcus, what is the most important thing that people should take away from this episode?
That's a tough question, because I think there are so many important things. But if I had to choose one, I would say this. Your brain is more powerful than you think. You have the ability to think in English. You don't need special talent. You don't need to be a language genius. You just need to believe in yourself and put in the work.
That's beautiful. I would add one more thing. Your brain is also faster at learning than you think. If you use the right strategies, you can see results much faster than you expect.
Yes, I think a lot of people underestimate how quickly their brain can adapt and learn. If you were in an English-speaking environment right now, your brain would start thinking in English within months, maybe faster. So the fact that you're listening to this podcast, the fact that you're intentionally trying to improve your English, that means your brain is already starting the process.
I love that. So, in a way, just by listening to this episode, people are already moving in the right direction.
They are. Because they're getting English input, they're learning new techniques, they're being inspired, and all of that is part of the process.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to Talk, Learn, Teach. We come out with new episodes every week, and each episode is designed to help you become a more confident English speaker.
And please share this podcast with your friends. If this episode helped you or if you learned something new, tell your friends about Talk, Learn, Teach. Let's grow this community together.
We would also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell us, what's your biggest struggle with thinking in English? What technique from this episode are you going to try first?
Yes, I read every comment and sometimes I respond, so don't be shy. Tell us your story. Tell us what you're struggling with. Tell us what you've already achieved. Because this is not just a podcast. This is a community of English learners who are supporting each other.
And honestly, when I read comments from listeners, it inspires me. It reminds me why we do this, because I know that our words are helping real people become more confident English speakers, and that's the greatest reward.
One more thing before we go. I want you to do one thing today. Just one thing. Pick one of the techniques we talked about. It could be thinking aloud for 5 minutes. It could be shadowing a video clip. It could be watching an English movie. Just pick one thing and do it today. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till next week. Do it today.
Because that's how change happens. Change doesn't happen when you think about it. Change happens when you do it.
And remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are millions of people around the world who are learning English right now, and some of them are struggling with the same things you're struggling with. You're part of a global community.
So, thank you for listening to Talk, Learn, Teach. Thank you for trusting us to help you on your English learning journey. We can't wait to see you in the next episode.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself.
We'll be back next week with another episode full of tips, tricks, and real-life stories that will help you become a confident English speaker.
You've got this.
Goodbye, friends.
Goodbye.